You're listening to Little Rockers Radio. Thanks so much for joining us today. Today I'm touching on the development of fine motor skills and the amount of time that our children are spending on the screen, or not even just our children, us adults too. My husband and I have been talking about it a lot lately and reducing the amount of time that we're on the screen, even if it's just for work, but the amount of time that we're on the screen in front of the kids. So today, to talk about the development of fine motor skills, we're talking to Simone, who's the founder of a fabulous kit called Shapeeze that helps children develop their fine motor skills. Hi Simone, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks Sarah. Thanks so much for having me.
I guess the best place to start is with what are fine motor skills and why are they important?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, look, I'm not an occupational therapist or a qualified teacher, but I have been fortunate enough to work with people who are, and in doing so I've learned a lot. So fine motor skills basically involve the small muscles of our body, like the fingers and toes, although in general people normally are talking about fingers and hand strength when talking about fine motor. And without sound fine motor skills, we can have difficulty performing simple tasks like writing, cutting, using tweezers, threading things, undoing buttons, using a brush or comb, and even holding cutlery or a cup.
And the setback in the development of fine motor skills has had a really detrimental effect on children when they're starting primary school as well. So those early years where they miss the development of being able to hold a pencil or hold crayons and colour and draw, it has an effect on them when they start primary school, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You're completely right, Sarah. There are so many primary school teachers who I've spoken with basically saying they don't have the endurance to write, they don't have that finger strength to do things, they're not able to problem solve, their attention span's no good, and they're putting a lot of it down to the screen time that you were talking about because everything happens immediately and there's always a reward there.
Now, what can we expect from our children in terms of their fine motor skill development for the age that they're at?
Yeah, sure. So there is a lot of information and really useful charts available, especially occupational therapy websites. And we've got a few links that we can put up later on from research that I've done in the past. But just in a nutshell, with babies up to about 6 months, we normally would see babies grasping their hands and reaching out. It's almost like a reflexive action. Up to 12 months, we see a lot more precise grasping of objects, transferring objects from one hand to the other, using a little pincer grip to try and pick things up. Then up to 2 years, usually children would be feeding themselves, using a drink cup independently, using building blocks, that's the key one, holding crayons and pencils with their fists, lots of scribbling and using their fists for things, twisting and turning things as well, so you can start to see that finger strength coming through. And then 3 to 4 years, we can usually see children using crayons or pencils with their fingers rather than their fists. And there's a lot more controlled use of the implements and paintbrushes and so on. And they can also usually manipulate dough or clay. And you can also sometimes see them using their non-dominant hands in a more controlled way as well. And usually around this age, they would be able to trace and copy things, and again, in a reasonably controlled way.
So they're all the things that we think of as play, aren't they?
Exactly. And it's the whole learning through pacing, which is such a catchphrase, but it's actually true. There are so many great things that children can do, and they're actually attaining some really great skills that we don't even realise we need. So from 5 to 6 years, usually when they're starting school, we would usually see quite controlled use of their pencils and crayons and cutlery. They're able to manipulate things, quite fine things. They can dress and undress themselves. And a term that starts being used at this age as well, which I touched on before, is endurance. So the child is able to maintain, say, writing text for schoolwork without their hand becoming overtired too quickly. And from 7 years of age, which is usually around about year 1, we'd usually be able to see children manipulating things like their shoelaces. They should be able to tie their shoelaces and use tweezers, and they've got that endurance again to have legible handwriting for quite long periods of time.
And we'll pop up the links. You mentioned some of the links just before, but we'll pop them up on the website. So for people who are wanting to find out more information on where their children should be at certain ages as a guide, we'll pop up those links and they can follow through. You mentioned some of the play activities there. What are some of the other forms of play that children can partake in to help them develop their fine motor skills?
So talking predominantly about preschool children, activities that require pushing, pulling, twisting, turning of the fingers and hands all help to strengthen their little fingers. Activities like Lego, painting, jigsaws, drawing or tracing, they're great ways to reinforce that strength and control. And cooking, obviously fully supervised, is a great learning opportunity on a number of levels, but specifically looking at fine motor, the pouring, cracking, stirring, etc. That all helps with hand and finger strength. Other things that cooking actually benefits is problem solving, working out what to use and what ingredients you need, basic numeracy, conversations, teamwork, perseverance, that kind of thing, and possibly other things as well, but that's what I've got.
And cooking is a good one for patience for Mum too. It took me a while to get my head around cooking with the children because I was just like, oh my God, it's such a mess.
Well, actually, my youngest, he actually is into making rainbow jelly at the moment, and he's away on school camp, and I actually was busily making the next layer of the rainbow jelly because I forgot to do it yesterday.
Oh, the joys! My goodness, it's never ending, isn't it? Now, you've created Shapeeze for children within this area, for parents as well, to help their children developing their fine motor skills. Tell us a little bit about Shapeeze and how they help.
Yeah, sure thing. So to give you a bit more of a background, I actually came up with the idea and created Shapeeze for Ella, my middle child, when she was 4. She wanted to be just like her big sister Grace, who was at school, but also very, very independent, didn't want me to help. And in a previous life, I actually used to foster a child who, even at 8, didn't have the finger strength to hold a spoon properly to eat cereal. And when I decided that Shapeeze, I literally remember thinking to myself, surely I'm not the only idiot that thinks this is a good idea. And when I started designing it properly, I had that memory at the front of my mind. So after working with Ella's preschool teacher in Melbourne, I then consulted with an occupational therapist up here in Sydney, who lives in Sydney. And so the kits don't just help with your educational outcomes, like your foundation skills, but also the fine motor side of it as well. I do feel very strongly that all children should be confident in their abilities when they start school, no matter what their background. And, not all children have the benefit of circumstances that would support the usual childhood development that we've just discussed. So that was where my motivation came from. And as far as the kits themselves go, they're very simple activities designed specifically so they're child-friendly and they're simple for the children to work out to do themselves. And they're basically pressing out shapes and pasting them into matching templates. So the pre-perforated shapes, letters, numbers, the children press them out, paste them into template pictures with a glue stick. And the letters and numbers are all traceable, so that helps with handwriting practice as well as their letter and number recognition. And this all helps with their finger strength and their hand-eye coordination. And they're using the glue stick rather than having pre-gummed stickers. That's a precursor to holding a pen or a pencil. So again, it works in encouraging finger strength and endurance to write and draw. Just simply peeling off a pre-gummed sticker and sticking it somewhere, it actually takes away that opportunity to build really crucial skills. And I also have triangle-barreled coloured pencils that are a specific shape and a specific size, just to help them practice their correct pencil grip.
And like you said earlier, the other thing that it helps with is their problem-solving skills, because they're cutting, pasting, putting things to certain shapes, jigsawing, etc. So it is actually a much bigger picture than just the development of their fine motor skills as well.
Oh, look, you're so right, and you've taken them so well. I really have got, there's a lot of problem solving in there. Where do I put this? Which way does the shape go around? I've designed them specifically so that the pictures are just basic shapes, the way little children would draw. So there's no peripheral imagery there, which means the child can really take ownership, and it gets back to what I was saying before about the primary school teachers, children not being able to problem solve and think things out for themselves. With the designs, one of the things I love is when children come to me with pictures that not only have they completed the pasting and the tracing, but they then added extra things, trees, birds, bikes. I had astronauts fighting aliens in the rocket ship one day, and like really fabulous things. And I love that because as adults, we have to think creatively every day, and we're problem solving simple things every day, and yet our children are losing the ability to do that because, again, these online games, they're very, very structured, and you can only do things a certain way, and it happens so quickly that they've lost that attention span.
So for people who are listening who are interested in finding out more about the Shapeeze kits, we've got a discount special set up for Little Rockers listeners with Shapeeze. It's 15% off when you mention Rockers or use code word Rockers, ROCKERS, at the checkout. Is that right?
That's correct. So it's Shapeeze, SHAPEEZE.com.au, and the code Rockers, ROCKERS, as you said, and you can enjoy a 15% discount when you buy from the website.
Yes, so visit shapeeze.com.au, www.shapeeze.com.au. It's a topic that I'm really passionate about, obviously, talking about the development of fine and gross motor skills in our children and just our children's development in general, especially in the digital age that we now find ourselves living in. Thank you so much for joining us today, Simone.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege. Thanks so much, Sarah.
That was Simone, the founder of Shapeeze, talking all things fine motor skill development on Little Rockers Radio. Thanks for listening.